the things that I find empowering about your research is that you tell people that to trust their own senses and their own reasoning skills, their own observations to figure things out for themselves instead of handing the authority over to someone else. They can take the authority themselves and figure it out, like, to just see the obvious things and to use your senses, like how the horizon always rises to eye level, no matter how high you get.
We're up on the Bayok 2 Sky Tower in Bangkok, and it is the tallest building in Bangkok, 84 stories high. So we're about 1,000 feet up, which with a curvature calculator says the horizon is about 37 miles away from us. So if we're looking out 37 miles that way, there's about 37 miles the other way. We're talking 72 miles, and we're up 1,000 feet. And after 37 miles, there should be 1,000 feet of curvature. So the horizon should be 2,000 feet below us, technically. But it's right at eye level, just like it will always be, regardless of how high you are. If you're up on Mount Everest, it's still at eye level. If you're up in an airplane at 35,000 feet, it's still at eye level. And if you're taking a high-altitude balloon as high as it goes, 120,000 feet, is still at your eye level, proving that you're over a flat plane. Because if you are over a ball, no matter how big the ball was, the horizon is the curvature of the ball. So it cannot rise up to your eye level. So we should have to look down right now to be able to see the horizon. If you're in an airplane, you should have to look down even more to be able to see the horizon. And if you are looking at those high-altitude balloon footage, which are 4 times higher than commercial planes fly, it's still right at the eye level. But if the Earth was a ball, even if the ball was 100 times bigger than they say it is, it's below you. You have to tilt your neck down, you have to look down to see it, but you'll never do that on the Earth, because the Earth's not a ball, as you can see.
I just saw this one video, it wasn't even one of yours, it was just one video that showed the high altitude balloon footage and the sunspot.
Yep.
And you don't see any motion, and then I was like, could it be? And then I got to your videos, and the thing that really hit me hard was your explanation of circumnavigating the flat plane of the Earth as opposed to going around the Earth.
Right.
And that took me a while to figure out. Finally understood it as I broke through that programming, that globe programming. And then I was like, oh my God.
Because we're told that circumnavigation on a ball goes in a straight line, and by just traveling in a straight line somehow, we go all the way around and come back to our same location. But in reality, anybody that's ever done circumnavigation, first of all, they don't do north to south, they only do east to west. And when they have done it, whether it's Magellan back in the 1500s or it's people nowadays in airplanes, they just go from port to port, seaport to seaport, or airport to airport in relatively straight lines. And they're not a completely straight line, because they're going from here to here to here. If it was a ball, then they come around. But on the flat Earth, they're just going, from port to port to port until they eventually make a circle and come back around to where they were. So nobody is actually going in a straight, completely straight line, never deviating left or right, and then coming back to where they started from. That's just a false claim that we're taught as children, and people still think it's true, even though it's never happened. No circumnavigation like that has ever happened. And we're taught that east and west are like straight lines. North is up, south is down. The reality is that north is the center point. North is where all the compasses point to the North Pole. Polaris is directly above it, the only unmoving star in the heavens. Everything else revolves perfectly around that point. And then south is every line tangent to it. The entire perimeter is the south point. And then east and west aren't straight lines, but circles going around either way. So the sun, moon, and stars still rotate east to west, but in circles east to west over and around the flat Earth. And when we circumnavigate, we can still circumnavigate west to east, east to west, but it's going in a circle from port to port, not traveling in a completely straight line, never deviating, and then suddenly coming back to where you started, as we're told happens.
You got the North Pole, and if you're going east or west, they would just go around it. Like the needle of the compass would always adjust as you go around the North Pole.
Yep.
I always thought that was funny about how compasses work and how you got to hold it parallel to the ground.
Yeah, you have to hold it flat.
So and the needle's pointing to the north, or it doesn't really point to the south unless you bury the needle down.
Right. Imagine if you were standing on the south pole of a ball Earth with your compass upside down, holding it flat, and it's supposedly pointing north, which is up here. North, but it's pointing out here into outer space under the ball. How could a compass work at the south pole on a ball Earth? It makes no sense.
Yeah. It makes you wonder what that magnetic source that is attracting that compass needle.
Yeah, what is it actually?
What does it look like?
Yeah. Because it's
Someone
certainly
knows.
not some molten metal constantly moving in the middle of a ball that causes a constantly moving north and south dipole, like they say.
They give these really specific figures for all their theoretical nonsense to make it seem like it's not theoretical. It's like, oh, we've got mathematical equations, and that's all they've got is mathematical equations. And the equations that they plugged their numbers into gave them those numbers, and so now they're sure that that's what it is. But for mathematical equations to have any relevance on reality, they have to be referencing an actual natural phenomenon, something that actually tangibly exists that you can measure. And for instance, with the distance to the sun, they're not doing that. Nobody's ever gone to the sun, so you have no idea. They're just plugging it into a formula and getting new numbers every time.
Right.
So when they first came up with the heliocentric formula, the first figure for how far the sun away was like a very specific number starting with 3 million. 3,600,000, blah, blah, blah. The next one was a very specific number starting with 12,500,000, 7, whatever. And then it was Newton would say, he had that quote where he was like, it doesn't matter whether it's 26 million or 54 million miles away. Okay? And, and from there on, it was,
well, that was pretty scientific.
It actually went up to like 104 million miles away back in the early 1900s, and then they reined it into the current figure of 93 million, which they've been sticking with that for a while. But exactly, they do that. Oh, with star distances, those are ridiculous. They could talk about red shifting and blue shifting. And so apparently based on the hue, the color of the star, if it's, I forget which is which, but if it's, say it's red, then that means it's moving away from us, and if it's blue, it's moving towards us based on the space-time expansion from the Big Bang. And based on the exact hue, they know that this one is 4.2 trillion light years away, and that one is how far away and where they're going. But I can look out at most of the stars with a camera or a telescope and see them flicker and blink between red, blue, green, yellow, and every other color every split second. If you look at Sirius or Vega, or there's a bunch of stars that are multicolored, and anytime you look at them, they're switching between colors all the time. So their claim that stars are some consistent color that they can measure and get perfect distances on them based on their color and hue, again, theoretical nonsense, but presented to us with authority and exact figures right down to the decimal point, so it seems legit. And everybody just buys it because most people that's how we get used to getting information in school, is via authority. We don't get taught evolution and intelligent design, and then you get to choose, and third-party explanations, say, and then you get to critique and choose. No. We get taught evolution, and you have to write, everything that Darwin said down on the test, or you get an F. So it's all about regurgitating arguments from authority.
That's one thing in your research, you kind of point out that there's no real evidence that any of those lights in the skies are actually three-dimensional solid terra firma spheres.
Right. What we call planets used to be called wandering stars. And if you look at them through a telescope, they look just like a regular star. And they're only different based on the wandering paths that they seem to make, because they're revolving around the sun as the sun revolves around us. So it makes kind of a spirograph pattern, and that results in retrograde motion every once in a while. And so all these things have explanations in the flat Earth geocentric cosmology that people have been, retrograde motion, that ruins your flat Earth, doesn't it? It's like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
These things were already well explained long before the globe Earth ever came into play anyway. People have been taught that there isn't explanations for things that there are perfectly good explanations for. Or they've been taught straw man, wrong explanations by controlled opposition people like the Flat Earth Society telling them that the Earth disk is constantly rising or something to account for gravity.
And the last question for this was from a brother Padma from Chile. He asked me to ask you, how do you see how all the ancient cultures have this common knowledge of the flat of the flat motionless Earth, and the Vedas too, and all the all scriptures too, as long as we know, So how? Yeah, it's a difficult question. What's with that? What about that? It's a difficult question to answer.
It's universal if you go back hundreds and thousands of years, that all across the world, through all cultures and all religions, all spiritual systems, all scriptures mention a flat and motionless Earth, and not a single one mentions a spinning, rotating, revolving ball hurtling around the sun.
We're the only ones.
We're the only ones. That's a modern invention, but it's been so successful that in the past few hundred years, that modern invention has made it into the minds and hearts of literally every person on Earth nowadays. Well, the past few years actually that's been trailing off, but say up until 2014, that was, I would say, heliocentrism was the most successful covert religious indoctrination in history. People were believing in a religion.
It's a religion.
It's a religion. Outer space type religion, without even knowing that they were believing in something that had no basis in reality. If you listen to modern science, apparently we are now at the pinnacle of evolution, and humans are the smartest and most developed that we've ever been. But if you listen to ancient religious systems like the Vedas, they tell you the exact opposite, that we've gone to a devolution, and we're now in Kali Yuga, which is a devolved state. The lowest of the cycle. And
that's good.
I tend to think that that's where we are.
I've heard you say that you never really bought the spinning ball reality, but when you were early on in your research, what was your eureka moment?
I never fully bought it. I still assumed it was correct. I mean, I had my initial questions right when it was taught to me as a child, and the questions weren't satisfactorily answered, and I never thought they were. But nobody else was making those observations or those critiques, so I just kind of put it away for a while. I remember one time I was researching it at Chula, where I used to work on a break time when I was teaching at university. I was researching geocentrism, and somebody came over as the librarian there, and I just started telling him some facts about geocentric universe and how the whole heliocentric spinning thing, how it just doesn't work because of the star trail rotation. He sat there and listened to the whole thing, and by the end of it, he's just like, I don't know about you. It was like my first experience with trying to, at that point I wasn't even into flat Earth yet, because I was into geocentrism first, the idea that, okay, the Earth's a ball, but it surely doesn't seem to be moving, so it was kind of like easing my way into it. And there was a little bit more information on that, factual information on that outside of the Flat Earth Society that I could find online. Stuff about the Michelson-Morley, Michelson-Gale, Sagnac-Airy experiments. So there's actual scientific experiments that have been done to show that the Earth isn't moving. And you can do them yourself just by looking up at the sky, because if the Earth was spinning around the sun, which is spinning around the galaxy, which is shooting off through the universe, there's 4 different motions that are all happening all at the same time. And it would be impossible for there to be constellations ever, because no 2 nights would be the same. And star trails wouldn't be perfect circles, they would just be irregular spiral shapes, just completely random all the time, if the Earth was actually undergoing all the motions that the heliocentric system says we are. So that was my first exploration into it, and it was received just as the flat Earth was received with complete incredulity and thinking I'm ridiculous. Yeah. You're a little special, I think, Eric. Why do you question, consensus truths? But even,
Who do you think you are?
Right? How dare you? How dare you? You think your first grade
you're
teacher
smart?
was lying? Every scientist, every teacher.
Everybody, they're all in on it. Millions of people.
Yep, they are willingly
So you're-
lying about it.
You're anti-science.
Yeah, it's anti-science too.
Yeah.
No. Most
Yeah,
people
it's like-
just go along to
It's
get
not the
along.
same as the same science that goes into, let's say, building an engine. It's not the
Right.
same at all.
It's theoretical science. Theoretical physics and astrophysics and all these things. These are not things that are. You can't prove that a black hole exists to me here. You know,
But there's a movie about it now, Interstellar.
and that's all the proof most people need. I saw they went to
Christopher
the moon.
Nolan worked
It was
with
on
NASA,
video.
man, for the visual effects.
Yeah, man. If it's on video, it's real, don't you know? And questioning it is stupid.
So you're saying like modern day astronomy and the star maps, the distance of galaxies and stars, that is fiction.
Yeah.
You're saying that.
Yeah. I'm saying that. You're
Yeah.
saying guys like
You're saying
Einstein
that.
and Newton and the geniuses of past generations you're smarter than all of them.
Decades of science. I mean, there's like imagine how many Star Wars expanded universe novels there are. You're telling me that's all fiction? How much work went into that?
All for nothing.
So it's each one little thing, and I think that's what's so great about what you're seeing with the music and flat Earth in general is that how it really is the one that completely destroys the foundation. It completely shatters the paradigm, and then you have to, like you said, relearn. Because it's like, oh, you can have questions about the moon landing, or I talked about like JFK with my buddy the other day, but you'll always have questions about JFK because you'll never have the whole truth. Where every day you could wake up and you could go see like, oh yeah, do the different tests. Water doesn't curve, all these different things. Stick to a spinning ball, like very easy, simple things, and that's what I think is so great with the message you put out in your music too.
Flat Earth is twofold great because of that. Like, not only is it the biggest deception possible, so it's the biggest lie in history, but it's also the easiest to prove.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, how great is that? We don't
Yeah.
have to flounder around looking into all these friggin' rabbit holes that nobody can ever get to the bottom of, like the JFK assassination that people
Right.
are still researching 50 years later and have theories left, right, and center. I don't even know, man. I still entertain theories that he didn't even die and it was a fake death, or who knows. It's so inconclusive that we really can't even get to the bottom of that one, just like many other conspiracies, even though they are. The thing with conspiracies is you can get to the point where you know that it's a conspiracy. You can get to the point where you can debunk the official explanation, so you know that whatever they're saying is wrong. The hard part is getting to what is actually right.
Right.
And you can debate and research down those rabbit holes forever. With the flat Earth, the great part is you can debunk the globe in a weekend.
Yeah.
And then the next week you can spend doing backyard experiments where you can prove to yourself that we are motionless and there is no curvature to the Earth.
Right.
So you can find out for yourself, empirically, objectively, the truth about the shape of the Earth, which then opens up this whole new world where you realize, well, that means this is wrong, that's wrong, evolution and all these other things.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying, I don't have beliefs. I have a strong thing against belief, which is usually where people jump into. The second they don't know the answer for something, they look for an authority figure who has just 100% confidence in some answer, regardless of whether they can actually prove that answer. So, for instance, Big Bang. There's no empirical evidence of a Big Bang. Nobody can prove that is what happened. It's just a theory. But you've got all these astrophysicists writing books and giving lectures with 100% confidence saying, this is what happened. We know it. Mathematically, scientifically, whatever, and they use all the right words, but really it's just power of authority, the fallacy of authority, and people like what's that alien show? I want to believe.
Oh yeah, X-Files, right?
X-Files.
Yes, yeah.
I feel like every conspiracy people are like that. They're just like, they get like sparkles in their eyes, and they're like, I want to believe in Bigfoot and aliens and everything. It's like, I'm the opposite. I want to not believe. Like, I just don't believe. And people are like, you don't believe in dinosaurs? It's like, yeah, I just don't believe. But what about this? But what about that? It's like, no. I just don't believe.
Right.
Don't frame me into this. So you believe that this is a fake and this is a fake. No. I'm staying skeptical.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah,
and these
I
other
like that.
people who supposedly are skeptics, like the mainstream skeptics, like what are those ones called? Mythbusters.
Sure.
And the Amazing Randy and these other people. They somehow they get the name skeptic, but all they do is promote the mainstream version of reality. So they're the absolute opposite of a skeptic. A skeptic is someone who doesn't buy hook, line, and sinker whatever theory or evidence is being proposed and waits to corroborate evidence and figure it out for themselves. I have a special place in my brain for things that aren't conclusive, where they're able to just jumble in with any other evidence from the left, right, or center that happens to come along. And if I wasn't, I would never have been able to figure out flat Earth. I mean,
Sure.
I spent years. It took, most people nowadays, it's easy to figure out flat Earth. When I was trying to figure it out, the only information available was from like 150-year-old books and
Right.
False information on the Flat Earth Society website,
Sure.
which I had to like debunk for myself.
Yeah.
So it took me literally years to come to the conclusion that the Earth is flat and motionless, whereas people now, because the information has now been updated and repackaged in a way that it's really palatable and easy to figure out, people are able to wake up some people have said they've woken up within, a video. They just knew it intuitively, and then they just needed to confirm it, which
Yeah.
obviously it's anybody that wakes up after one video, it's almost it's too fast. Hold on.
Yeah.
But it is true. I mean, intuitively, you don't feel that you're moving. Intuitively, you've never seen a curve. You've never felt yourself upside down on the earth or whatever. All these things. So I mean, our natural common sense and experience is a flat, motionless Earth. So people who are in touch with their intuition and in touch with their feelings, rather than in touch with the intellectual indoctrination they've received their entire lives, are able to kind of get a glimpse when they're like, wow, I kind of thought this was real actually. And then they get a few points of evidence that back it up, and it's like, they don't go to sleep that night.
Yeah.
I sure
Yeah.
didn't.
No.
If you have satellites, why do you need about 550,000 miles of undersea fiber optic cables to connect the world's internet?
Why do satellites still attached to balloons keep falling everywhere? Yeah, the only satellites that actually exist are not floating up there in vacuum space, as they tell us. They're just weather balloons, just like we know.
They got solar panels on them and stuff like that.
And like you said, 99% of all communication is done through ground towers and undersea cables, so there's no need for them anyway. And before satellites, they had military systems like Decca and Loran, they were called, and those were able to get all the way around the world, no problem. So there's actually no need to have these fantastic devices floating up there in space to send us pictures or to relay weather information or anything. It's just another story we've been told, like the moon landing, and we all assume it must be true because some authority said so. They said we went there. I saw a picture of it, so it's true. And that's the level of proof that people require nowadays. And when you try to get something that is empirical, objective, that you can actually tangible, that you can figure out for yourself, when people say that you're like, some crazy conspiracy theorist because you want to be able to test things for yourself, and we just have to rely on the scientists and the authority figures, and if you don't, you're dumb somehow.
You talk about this, the legend of Mount Meru in some of your videos. That is quite there's some people that are really enchanted by that, calling it paradise must be there, especially with the 24-hour sunlight that's around that area. The northern lights too are kind of curiosity of that area.
magnetic phenomenon in the north.
Yeah.
They say we've attained the pole, and there isn't a big mountain of magnetite there.
It's just ice.
It's just ice. Sometimes it's water, constantly shifting, and they never show video of like Polaris being 90 degrees above. They never show, sextant measurements or anything, so we can prove that they're definitely at the North Pole. They just show 90 degrees on a Garmin
On the GPS
in
or
some
something.
ice plateau somewhere. And the other thing is that the heavens from there, they're completely unique. It's supposed to be that Polaris is directly overhead, 90 degrees. All the other stars would move around you horizontally and seem equidistant away from you. And then the sun, there's like 6-month days and nights supposedly at the North Pole, but you're never going to find a single video of this online. It doesn't exist. So the sun goes up. If you were an observer at the North Pole, you shouldn't see the sun for about several months, and then you start to see the first rays of it, and so dawn will just start to go around you every 24 hours, and then you'll start to see the head of the sun, and it'll start to blur out some of the stars until it comes up, and then you see the whole sun, and then summer lasts for, one day lasts for several months, and it'll go up as far as 23.5 degrees on the horizon. That'll be the summer solstice for somebody at the North Pole. And then it will start to go down until the autumn equinox, and then it's going to start the long night, the long winter, and the sun will disappear, and like dusk will last for like 45 days to 60 days. So here dusk lasts like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So up there it's a whole different thing, and then the sun will completely disappear, and you will see the entire northern dome of the heavens circling horizontally perfectly around you as the observer, unimpeded for months by sunlight. Usually you can only see star trails for 12 hours at a time or so. Here you'll be able to see them for months, unchanging, going around. And you'd think that would be worthy of like an IMAX documentary. That would be worthy of being
Just
shown
imagine
on
what kind of
every
plant
prime time
life
channel.
grows there under those like unique conditions.
Supposedly very temperate, and they say that it's ice and all this all the time, but I'm skeptical.
Just a sad, lonely polar bear.
Yeah, right, somewhere. A couple seals beating it out. I'm skeptical because there's no video of that. I'd love to see that. Wouldn't you love to see an IMAX video of the polar astronomy that I just described? You'd think that would be absolutely like a wonder of the world. But no, you can't even find a single video online or anywhere else showing that.
That'll
But
scare people
supposedly
away.
you can take like penguin tours there, just like the South Pole, allegedly.
I think we very well may be at a turning point because of that. With the internet and everything, we have this level of information and communication at our fingertips. That if we do get active, in spreading this to everyone, as we were talking about, I honestly think flat Earth is the most important truth.
Yeah.
Because unlike all other conspiracies and these kind of topics like JFK or 9/11, you can't go to Dealey Plaza and find some
Go
DNA
50 years
of-
ago and check if the thing was,
Exactly. It's you can
What
debate
was the-
about it endlessly. Whereas with the Earth, you can experiment and do your own tests and
tomorrow,
demonstrations
and the day
every
after tomorrow,
forever,
yeah.
and find out that this is for real. And then once you do find out that flat Earth is real, like you said, it opens up this whole new doorways where you need to re-question a whole bunch of other
Everything,
things.
everything.
And
From
isn't-
medicine to
isn't
economy.
That what people need? Isn't that what humanity needs right now? Because we're going in so many wrong directions about certain things. If you can have like a flat Earth is like a wake-up call, kind of like
Yeah.
a red pill or something like the Matrix
Yeah.
analogy. Basically, it just blows your mind open, and now you become a sponge because you realize I'm wrong about a lot of stuff. I need to find out what's right.
Yeah.
Unlike JFK or something,
Yeah.
like everybody
That's
kind of
it.
knows
Okay,
that
yeah.
there's something fishy there, but they're never going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
This one, it's super fishy, and you can get right to the bottom of it. And once you do, you realize that you're in an ocean of bad
Yes.
smells.
Yeah.
That's why you want to corroborate and not look for like a certain figurehead that you think and hope is trustworthy. Even myself, just look at what you should be your end. What would you call it? Determiner of everything. And if something hasn't passed your own sniff test, if you haven't gotten enough evidence, I recommend holding things in that limbo in your brain where, because you don't have to have a definite answer for everything. Isn't that what the scientific method actually is?
Yeah.
It's that you never actually come to a full conclusion. You're just always experimenting and further refining the results to get closer to what the truth must be.
Yeah.
If you approach conspiracy research in that way, in that scientific way, then you don't just fall down a rabbit hole and then start telling your friend, oh, it's this way, it's this. Well, this guy said this. And that's, you're going too far, you're too fast when you do that.
Yeah.
Look at everything as possibilities, and don't think of anything as set in stone unless, it's as objective as, say, the flat Earth. I mean, that's my standard now for truth. It's because you can test it all day, every day, in a myriad of ways, and it always comes out the same. So it's unlike most conspiratorial truths we're trying to get to the bottom of. You just can't scientifically get to them in that way.
Right.
But you can use that same kind of method in your research, and not just buy hook, line, and sinker, whatever the new fad theory is, and just hold them all there without being too conclusive. I think that's the big problem, is people, they believe whatever they were told right away, and then some people, their mind gets blown open too wide, and then they'll believe whatever the next person says. Oh, now this is real. And whoa, hold on.
Right.
This is the thing that got you into trouble in the first place, where you just bought wholesale whatever somebody said, and you're okay, this is what it is. Now you're just doing it again. So no, let's learn from the first time.
Yeah. Get like a QAnon tattoo. No, wait. Oh.
When people say, "What does it matter?"
Right.
That's the one that just.
As if the entire world has been successfully lied to about what the world is, where we are, for 500 years. And if that was true, I don't even see how that's important. How's that relevant?
What is it? My place in the universe,
Yeah.
single verse of this reality that I know, and what it all means, the mystery of life.
Why does it even matter?
Okay, isn't it?
You still got to go to work in the morning. I think it's a defense mechanism. We've talked about this before. When people say, "What does it even matter?" I think it's they're trying to convince themselves that it's not important by saying that, because they know it's absolutely important if true, but they don't want to accept that it could possibly be true. So they want to be like, it's even if it was true, it's not important. Right. Give me a reason. Convince me otherwise, and if you don't, then it's not important. And then the onus is now suddenly on you, the crazy flat earther, to convince somebody who's done no research why this thing is true and important to their life, when they say, well, I still have to get up and work in the morning, so what does it even matter if the earth is flat?
Yeah, they're just all like, so, what causes the eclipses? Answer me now.
That's it, and they'll just start asking you questions. Like, asking a question is a defense. Like that's somehow giving evidence to the contrary. If they say, well, how do you explain this then? It doesn't matter how I explain this then. That's not an argument. You're just shifting the onus onto me again, and then, no matter what I say, you'll just dismiss it because you haven't done any research, and But that's the tactics. That's the rhetoric. That's why people are so discouraged from trying to wake people up, and then having this happen, and then they feel like the flat Earth is stagnating because they're stagnant, and the methods that they're using and the people who are around them are stagnant. But I mean, the flat Earth, it's been here long before Eric Dubé or anyone else. So it's not stagnating. It's humanity that's stagnated, and it has nothing to do with the flat Earth. It has to do with the actual consciousness of the people we're trying to wake up, but it's so far gone. There's plenty to be positive for. It absolutely is developing. But if you want to say what's stagnating, it's not the flat Earth. It's the sheep. It's the people. It's the people that are left to wake up now are the people that didn't wake up in the past 5 years. These are the people who have gone through it all, and they're still like, no, I don't think that. I'm not even going to look into it. Why does it even matter? So these are the hardest people to wake up, and so that's why it feels stagnant.
Do you know how many space agencies there are in the world?
No.
I think it's like
A couple dozen. No.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a dozen of them are able to have like rockets. I mean, they have rockets, right?
Yeah.
So I think, what would your like flat Earth defense be on that?
Well, it's not just NASA, right? It's all the other people. Right? Yeah, other people lie too. Not just NASA. Other countries want to scam their populations out of tax money too, and not just Americans.
Yeah.
Go figure. Yeah,
Like outer space theme parks.
Right.
And you go there with your family.
Outer space is a theme park.
Pose for some pictures with like some astronaut mannequins or some like outer space paraphernalia, like movie props.
Right. They promote it to kids and stuff.
And if those like theme parks make enough money, and then eventually, okay, now we can get rockets included now.
Well,
Put on those theatrics of rockets taking off,
that's all it is.
smashing into the Bermuda Triangle.
Right. That's what happens, certainly. That's what the Bermuda Triangle is. It's just the area in which Fort Lauderdale's rockets fall back to the ocean.
Yeah, for sure.
As you can see, all rockets, they don't just go straight up like they should if they're going into outer space. They do a big parabola, and then when they get to about this point, they fall out of your perspective so you can't see anymore. And then the authorities explain to you that, it's using gravity to fall around the curve of the Earth, and then it's going to be whipped around by gravity and send a trajectory. This is what they actually say. It has to be done just right to get a trajectory perfectly to the moon or wherever it is they're going.
Slingshot past the sun, right?
Right.
It's kind of funny too. How they used to tell that boogeyman story about don't go to Bermuda Triangle because ships have gotten. Have you ever read that?
Yeah. Did you know that
ships have gotten sucked into some strange dimension?
the first Bermuda Triangle disappearance story came in 1950, the same year that the first rocket was shot out from Florida?
So you're telling me that the Bermuda Triangle has nothing to do with a fire crystal of Atlantis that exploded or something?
Sea monsters and
Both was
giant
involved.
No, it's just people who see what they're not supposed to see regarding NASA's rockets that they shoot into the ocean right in that vicinity.
Exactly.
And when you're asking about the other countries, it's the same thing. It's a tax scam. So NASA, for instance, makes $52 million a day from American taxpayer money just to give us CGI photos and shoot those rockets up.
Could make some good
People
movies
say,
with that budget.
why would they spend all that money to fake it? They're not getting it. Hello. Yeah, they are getting that much money every day to fake it. They're not spending nearly that much money every day to do it. So they're running to the bank with American taxpayer and other countries' taxpayers' money and spending piddly little of it to fake us into believing it, and the rest is, laughing to the bank.
Yeah, but if it doesn't matter that they're doing this, then
It doesn't even matter because I have to go to work in the morning. So shut up, you crazy flat earther.